Today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm on my way to a 340 square meter or almost 3,700 square foot villa built in 1905 near the city park in Maribor, Slovenia, to take photos of it just for this video. The camera I'll be using is something special, something you haven't seen on this channel before. Now look, 99% of you watching this will never buy this camera, and that's fine. For the 1% that do want to buy one, please use my link below, but I promise that 100% of you will find this fascinating. This is a very specialized camera designed for the AEC sector. That's architecture, engineering, and construction. And for real estate photographers as well, which is what we're using it for. Given the price of the camera, I'd say that even there in real estate, it's limited to high volume or high-end real estate. So if you're shooting $1 million homes like I am today, or if you're shooting lots of properties and want to minimize post-production time, then you'll want to seriously consider this camera. I'll explain more about the hardware and the tech and give you all the details throughout this video. But in essence, the Realsee Galois 3D LiDAR camera creates 16K resolution, 360-degree panorama tours without having to manually create hotspots, creates floor plans mostly automatically, and generates a 3D point cloud that can be used for a dollhouse tour, CAD downloads, and a lot more. You can shoot both indoors and outdoors with it, and even incorporate drone footage. And, well, this is the house we're shooting today. Unlike a traditional 360 camera that has two 180-degree field of view cameras back to back, the Galois 3D actually rotates 360 degrees on its own self-powered motor, both photographing the room and scanning it with LiDAR. And even if you never use any of the cool 3D functions like the point cloud or the floor plan creation, having the LiDAR scan means that the camera knows exactly where it was placed for each capture. And that means that when you go to build the expansive 360 tour where you can jump from point to point, there's actually nothing to build. The software does all of that for you, mapping the camera's position as a new hotspot for each new scan. Using a regular 360 camera, you have to upload all the photos to a service where you then manually add hotspots to hop to the next photo, which is tedious. With this camera, it's all done for you. This is the camera. It certainly doesn't look like any camera that you might be used to, but setting this up is super simple. So it comes with a quick release plate and a special tripod for it, so you just gotta mount that on and lock it into place. That's all there is to that. For power, it actually has basically an all-day battery, kind of an 8-hour battery, but if you are shooting something really big, it does have a removable battery, so you can swap that out and have a second one with you. There's two lens caps on it, kind of funky. So you've got this lens cap here, which is magnetic, by the way, and that is for the camera. So there's your standard camera right there. And then on this side, we've got the LiDAR camera with another lens cap, so pop that off, and that's the LiDAR camera. Also on the back here, you'll find a little door. Underneath this door is the charging port, and then also a USB-A port and a micro SD card slot, neither of which are actually being used right now. They're just there for service or whatever future use. Push the power button and it starts up. It takes about a minute to boot, and that's all there is to it. Now that the camera's set up, the rest of the setup is really easy. You just need to download the app from the App Store. This can run on your phone or your tablet. And I actually did this the first time on my phone, but now I'm switching to do this on the iPad because it just makes it a bit easier. It's really self-explanatory. Once you install the app, it'll prompt you to fire up the camera and connect to its Wi-Fi. Now I've already done that here, so my device is already connected to the camera. And essentially all I have to do now is tap scan, and that takes me into the scan room. It's gonna give me some advice like turn on the lights and open the doors of all the rooms, set the tripod height to 1.3 to 1.5 meters, which is basically the maximum height of that tripod. Think about it like eye level. You wanted it basically eye level, like a walking tour through a house. And then it's going to advise you of the frequency and the layout of setting up the camera. All these things you'll get to know, and you'll never have to look at that again. You press start, and now you're ready for the first scan. Prepping a house for scanning in 360 isn't really any different than prepping a house for standard real estate photos. Turn on all the lights, open all the doors, close the toilet lids, and make sure the place is tidy. Doors are especially important to have open in a 360 LiDAR scan though. You don't want to make changes to the structure while shooting, or scans may not automatically line up. After all, LiDAR can't see through a closed door, so you need that. Incidentally, if anything does fail to automatically align, you can easily make adjustments manually later. But also, you do want viewers to see an open door, so they're invited to walk through it. If they see a closed door in a 360 view, then they may not want to step through. Let's talk about camera positioning in a room and frequency, how many scans you need per room. It largely depends on the level of 3D detail that you want, and of course how many points or hotspots you want your viewer to be able to jump to. The more scans you do, the more accurate your cloud data will be, obviously. But if all you care about is the 360 tour, then as long as the camera can see another scan position, then that's all the precision you need. This room, where I'll begin, is very detailed and has a lot of doors and the stairs, and so I'll be scanning quite a few in here. It's certainly better to overshoot than undershoot, since you can easily remove hotspots in the editor if you decide you don't need that viewer jumping to whatever that point was. Since I am building a comprehensive 3D model for you to see, in this house I'm going to be shooting a lot of captures in every room, especially rooms with lots of details, like this one. The most important thing though is that the camera has a clear line of sight to the other camera points. That's needed so the LiDAR can calculate exactly where the previous and next camera positions are. Which means that when it comes to doorways, you need to be especially aware. An easy way to ensure that you always have visibility is to place the camera right in the doorway of each room. And then a few scans in the room, again depending on what's in there and how big it is and how much detail you actually want. You can start scanning a property in any room, but generally a large room like the foyer or living room is a good idea. This home has a grand entryway, so I'm going to start right here in the middle. You do need to get out of the way for the scan, so we'll leave the camera here and head into another room. Okay, we're out of the way, we're ready for the first scan. You can see the software is showing a blank page right now because I haven't done anything, but all I gotta do is tap the plus button. Literally that's it, and it says scanning in progress. Now the camera is doing its thing. All right, the first scan is done, now we gotta move the camera. So for this, we're just gonna reposition it a little farther away. Let's go down to this end of the room. And then after this, I'm going to move it over there to that side, and then we'll start going through the doorways, up the stairs, and everywhere else. Let's get back out of the way. Now we've moved the camera, we're ready for the second scan. Just tap the plus button, and that's it. I don't have to tell the software where the camera is. Once it scans, it'll figure that out, and it'll map it all here in the software. All right, our third scan is done, and we can already see how this is coming together in the software. If I tap on any one point, I can get a preview of the 360 pano. I can even jump to another point in here, just getting a preview of what it's looking like so far. We can also flip this into 3D mode and already get a basic 3D look of the model. Now, obviously we have a lot more data to go, but this is how it starts. So now it's just a process of repeating this over and over again for every room in the house, and don't forget the doorways. So the camera can shoot indoors and outdoors, and right now, because the view from the front door here got part of the outdoors, I'm going to capture the rest of the patio. Later on, I'll do the rest of the exterior, but right now this will give me a data point to lock onto when I do go outside. And you can see from here that we do have multiple levels, so I'm on a raised patio, so I'm going to have to deal with all of that later as well, but we'll come to that. So for now, just reposition this right here and start the scan. All the data processing happens in the cloud, and while it's completely hands-off, it does take time to process. In the test that I've done, it's taken from 30 minutes to an hour to finish, and it may take more for this one as it'll be such a big project. But again, you don't need to do anything but wait. When you're capturing the images, all data is stored on your phone or tablet, and each scan takes about 40 megabytes of storage, so do make sure that you have enough free space on your device. The raw data is transferred between the camera and your device over Wi-Fi. You can choose to use your cellular data to upload the files as you capture them, meaning your processing can begin as soon as you finish capturing, or you can wait until you're back on fast Wi-Fi and let it all upload then. There are things you can do while capturing to help get better results at the end, like trimming off unnecessary cloud point data and defining windows and glass walls and mirrors. So here, check this out. I've just finished scanning a bathroom here, and if I tap on point 13, we can see the data points in here. Now, as you can see right there, there's a mirror. If we look at the cloud data, you can see that it looks like there's a little bit of confusion, and that's of course because data, LiDAR data, has bounced off in the mirror. So I'm going to define that as a mirror. By going into here and choosing Feature Annotation and selecting Mirror, I'll now drag a horizontal mirror across the wall here. So now that it's just defined that as a mirror point, so now when the cloud data does its final analysis, it knows that that is reflective information and not to think of it as a hole in the wall. Okay, let's talk pricing. I said in the beginning that this was an expensive camera. It's only something you buy if you're really going to use it. The camera itself is $54.99 US. Now, I just got notified that there is a special going on right now for Black Friday. These prices are on your screen. These are phenomenal prices. Now, it may not be Black Friday anymore when you're watching this, but do be sure to check the link down below for the latest pricing. All right, let's get back to the video. $54.99 US. But before you spit out your morning coffee, understand that there's only one other competitor on the market, and it costs over $1,000 more and requires monthly subscriptions. The Realsee use model is much more flexible. There's no monthly cost, so capturing, uploading, and building your 360 tour and floor plan are all free. When it's time to host a model, meaning you've made it publicly viewable, it costs just 1 credit per month. Credits start at under $3 per credit and go down considerably the more you purchase at a time. And that's really the only thing most people will need the credits for. Here's a chart showing some of the other things you can use credits on, such as downloading RAW or 16K panoramic photos if you want to edit and build your own panoramas, which again, you do not need to do, or to download point clouds in 3D models. So on the one hand, yes, it's significantly more expensive than something like an Insta360. But even if your primary use is just real estate tours, then with the Galois 3D, you get 360-degree tours that are seamlessly built almost entirely automatically and higher resolution, and include 2D floor plans and the dollhouse view for a really great tour experience. And of course, if you're an architect or an engineer, then the 3D volumes are invaluable. The camera itself in the Galois 3D is impressive. It's a 20 megapixel 4/3 sensor with an ultra-wide angle fisheye lens that captures triple exposures to build its HDR images in resolutions of 16,000 by 8,000 pixels or 128 megapixels for the 360-degree panoramas. It's a notably higher resolution and better quality sensor than you'll find in any standard 360 camera. There's another cool capability of this system, and that's to combine multiple cameras on a single project. Say you're capturing a huge space like a shopping mall or a museum. You can combine as many separate capture sequences as you like, as long as you have at least 3 common points between them. This would allow you to capture enormous spaces in minimal time if the job called for it. In reviewing the scans that I've got so far, I noticed that there's a bit of a dark corner in here, and that's because I had the camera, let's say here and probably over here, but these doors were open because we want the doors to be open, but that means that this corner is a bit of a dark space. If you look at the 3D data, you can see there's just not a lot of information there. Now, it's probably enough to build the floor plan, but I want to make sure that I have really good quality data there. I don't, however, want someone to stand there in the 360 view and look around. That doesn't make any sense. So what I'll do is go ahead and position the camera in here and do another scan. And then when I do the final edit, I'll just remove this hotspot so it's not somewhere that the viewers can jump to, but it still is part of the 3D data cloud. So this video is not going to be a complete user guide. There's a lot that you can do in here that I just don't have time to cover. But I want to show you the most important things. And one of those is how you capture a multi-level house. This house has a lot of levels to it. And as you can see now, we're on the stairs. So the method of capturing the stairs itself is really important. And then how you separate out the different levels in the software. So we're going to do all of that. Right now, I'm going to get the stairs, and going back to the whole what you need for 360 versus what you need for the 3D plot, you do want to have a lot of data on steps for 3D data. So I'm going to move the camera up every kind of 3 or 4 steps and get another scan, which is going to take quite a bit of extra time, but we want that to have that really accurate data. And when it comes to making the 3D tour, I probably will get rid of most of those hotspots because no one needs to walk up the stairs 10 times to get up to the top. But this is now set, ready to go. Camera's balanced, so let's get out of the way and scan the first level of steps. We've captured the stairs, and now I'm up on the landing. Now this technically might not be considered a floor, but given that it is a large area and there's a bathroom here, we're calling it a floor. So with that in mind, I need to go into the software and tell it that we're now on another floor. And to do that, all I have to do is go to the floor manager, which is up here under settings, and then add a floor. And you can see I've already got the ground floor, which I renamed from earlier, and out, which is outside, because outside is actually at a lower level. So now I'll add a new floor above, and we're just gonna call that 1F. And now I have a new floor that I can move objects to. So I just did my first scan on this first floor. So let's go ahead and move that. I'll go back to my previous floor view, which was the ground floor. Number 90 is the scan we just did. Tap on floors and move that to the first floor. Confirm, and now it's set. So now looking at the map, I only have this one scan on this floor. I can switch this to look at just the ground floor, or I can have it look at all floors and we see all the data points, which include everything I've scanned outside so far. But for now, I'll go ahead and set it back to 1F, the first floor, and add more scans to this floor. Now the good thing is that if you mess up and you add a scan to the wrong floor, you can move it at any time like you just saw me do here. But for now, since we're on this first floor, I'm gonna go ahead and add a couple more scans in here, primarily for that bathroom. Now I've just done a scan that includes this feature right here. This is a furnace. It is absolutely gorgeous and it deserves more attention than just what it's going to be seen in the 360 view. So here's something you can do in the app. I'll go to this latest point scan, the 107, and tap on label mark and find that furnace, which there it is. And then it says long press to add or move label. So I'll just long press on this and it pops up with a little title. And I'm just going to call this furnace. I'm sure there's a better name for it, but I'll find that later. And then I can add photos to it or graphics. I'm gonna go ahead and select from my album. I've already taken a bunch of nice photos on my iPhone, sent them to the iPad. So now I can go ahead and add these other photos of this object. Nice close-up photos here so that they are included in the 360 tour. And then during the 360 tour, the viewer will see a little tag that indicates that this is there and they'll be able to click on it and see better photos of it. That's one of the really, really cool things that you can do in here. So now we're shooting the outside, and I've already got pretty good coverage out here. This is kind of a last shot, but you'll see when we preview everything that I got a lot of outside, and it's looking really, really good. Not only do you get a cool, clean view of the house, the outside of the house, you also see all the trees, and even I went across the street into the park to show viewers what it would be like to walk from your beautiful villa into the city park. It's so cool, the things you can do with this. All right, let's do it. Let's get out of the way. So I showed you earlier how you can add pieces into the data, like a mirror or glass. One of the other things you can do is trim off excess 3D data, essentially telling the system that you don't really need 3D data beyond that point. Now, trimming off data indoors doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but outdoors, it really does, because you're gonna have scans of stuff like your neighbor's yard and the street, and you don't necessarily need that. So the way that we can do that is we go into Feature Annotation and we do Trim. And we look at our map and we can see that that is beyond the property line. So I'll just trim that. And I can do the same thing going this way. I'll add another point like so. So basically anything inside or outside of that is going to get trimmed out of the data set. So it just allows you to clean up the model a little bit before you export it. We just finished shooting the house. It took a while, and unfortunately we had to take like a 2.5-hour break in the middle. So you'll notice maybe some lighting changes in the middle of the shoot. Also, there were a few rooms that he didn't want us to go into to shoot. I guess the house just wasn't ready for that. So there are going to be some gaps in the 360 tour. I'll try to make those up in the floor plan so we can see what the whole layout actually looks like. But other than that, this was a smashing success. Oh, I did also lower the resolution of the cloud point data when I went upstairs just because we were running out of time. Again, that 2.5-hour break was not on the schedule today. But we've got the data. So this is everything that I can show you here. Now we got to go into the studio, open this thing up on the computer, and finish the project. So let's go. Let's start off with a quick little tour. There's the house. Let's just have a little stroll down the driveway. Each click brings us a little bit closer to that front door. You can see very nice smooth transitions here. And here we are going up the front steps into the front of the house. From the entryway, we can look around, get a beautiful view, see what it would look like as you step out for your morning coffee, and then into the entryway. And from here, we can look through and see the beginning of the house. All right, let's jump out of this tour here and take a look at the actual software. This is the interface, and there is a ton that you can do in here. I'm going to start by jumping into the edit page, and we'll take a look at many of the different things that we can do. We're, of course, not going to tour absolutely everything, but we're going to see a lot. Over on the left-hand side, you see a column of different tabs that you have. These are all the different rooms that you can go into to make changes to your project. Starting off with info, this is basic information about your project. It includes a lot of information that will be published for anyone viewing the project, so they can immediately from here see the primary contact information and so on about the realtor. But let's jump into the project itself. Going into settings. From here, one of the things you have is an initial view of each floor. Now, you'll notice here that it is currently labeled as B1, then 1F, 2F, and 3F. We'll be changing those later. But if you jump between these levels, you need to have a default view for the viewer to go to. So right now, if I hit 2F, that takes me up here to the landing. And I think by default, it's the first image that was created at that level. And this is probably a pretty good place to start it, but it may not be the best place. So let's just say that for 2F, which isn't really 2F, it's the landing, but we'll rename that later. We wanted to start something like this. Well, we can change that initial view. So let's go over here to 2F and hit set, and then decide how we want that. And you can see that you have framing for both vertical and landscape video. I can reset the perspective with this button here. And then once I'm satisfied with it, I'll just click this button to lock it in. And that now becomes the default view for that second floor. So if I go back to the 1F right now, which is going to take us back down to here, and then jump up to 2F, you'll see that default positioning. You can change the point style. By default, it's just a little circle, but you can set it to be a bigger circle, the footsteps, things like that. You can change the colors and so on of that style. You can change what the viewers will see when they very first load the project. You can change some interaction parameters and even add music to the tour. Next, let's take a look at hotspots. This is a really important area where you can add a huge amount of customization to your tour. You can add simply text that hovers over an object, or graphics or videos or audios, or link to other panoramas, all kinds of things in here. So let's just take a look at a couple of examples. I'm going to head back downstairs and into this room. And let's say that I wanted to add a link to this clock. Maybe it's because it's for sale. Maybe I just want to provide historical information, whatever it might be. So for this example, I'll just add a simple link to it. I'll click on the link option, choose where I want to position that, put it right there on the clock. And then over here on the right, I can add my title. This is a special clock. I can add a link to that. It could be an Amazon link. It could be a Wikipedia article, whatever you want to put in there, add the colors and so on. You can see here how it's added the text and the link is clearly visible. You can also choose to have that link only displayed at the current point, meaning that if I was to jump over to, let's say, point 27 or over here to 17 and look back at this, I wouldn't see it. I would only see it while I'm standing here, or I can have it visible anywhere, which is the default. Another really cool example of this is putting an image on a TV screen. So let's go ahead and head into the kitchen where there was a TV set up. And this TV, of course, is off, and that's a shame because that's just a big old space that could have something interesting on it. Well, we can actually put a video screen on this television. To do that, I'll simply click on screen, set it to video, add the video file that I want, and then position that on the screen. It may take a little bit of adjustment to get it just right, but we can scale this into place, move it up and down, forward and backwards, and get it positioned as closely as possible to that television monitor. I'll go ahead and save that. And now we can see that video playing right here in the kitchen. And if I jump out to another room, let's say we go over here, and now as I walk into that room, we'll see that video playing. You can even do virtual staging in here. So if you wanted to add furniture to an empty room, so I could take any piece of furniture and drop that into place wherever it might be needed. The guide page allows me to create a guided tour. Maybe not so useful for real estate, but if you wanted to have, let's say, a tour through a museum, you could control exactly how the viewer should walk through it, or at least offer suggestions of how they should tour the property. Under the adjust page, you can do some adjustments to the 3D model and to the panoramics. One of the things you can do in here is blur. So now you might have noticed when we were in the room looking at the clock, you could actually see me over in the corner because I didn't do a very good job of getting out of the way. So there I am over here in the corner. Whoops, I'm visible. Now let's just say I want to get rid of that. One of the options I have is the blur. So I could go to the blur to make this nice and small because this is pretty close and simply paint over that. You can use this to blur out sensitive information or anything you might want to remove from your model. You can also add filter effects if you need to just kind of brighten up your image a little bit in here. And you can even replace data. So if you needed to reshoot part of the panorama, you can do that. You also have the ability to remove a camera that might have shown up in the shot, like in a mirror, for example. So let's head up to the landing where I know that in this bathroom, the shot in here has the camera in the mirror. So let's go ahead and go to Remove Camera, click on AI Device Identification. Now this is going to take a while, but this is going to scan the entire house during this process, not just this one room, and I can continue working in the meantime. So let's move on to the floor plan. The floor plan can be an incredibly powerful thing to show potential buyers. So let's just jump into the editor and see what it's done automatically and how we can clean up the model. It is designing it completely based off of the 3D scan, and that does mean that it's not going to be perfect and you may need to do a little bit of cleanup, but a lot of it will be done. Now, I've already done some cleanup for the outside. And if I go in here and hide the original map, then we can see what's left behind. So all I did was create the perimeter around the building and then the perimeter of the house itself. Now, if I view the original map, you can see what I based that on. The original scan didn't include any of the garage because we couldn't get in there, so I had to kind of make this part up, but I think it's pretty obvious where the extents of the property are here. But let's go ahead and move up to the second floor. So from here, I'm going to go up to 2F, which it appears I do have to rename separately here. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. I will rename this to outdoors, second floor to ground floor, third floor to landing, and fourth floor to second floor. This is what viewers will see when they're looking at the floor plan. Now, I haven't touched this one at all, and we can see that there is a lot of really good information in here, but there's also a lot of gaps. If we go down here, we can see this was outside, but it for some reason added part of the floor plan to the outside as well. So let's just go ahead and start cleaning this up a little bit. I'll start deleting some of these extra walls in here that we don't need. Because these walls are so thick, it has definitely confused things. So let's just start over here. It looks like there's quite a few mistakes. So I'm going to just delete all of these portions here. And it looks like we've got a nice clean wall left. So let's go ahead and change the thickness of that. Now I know this is a 1/2 meter thick wall, so we'll go ahead and make that a 1/2 meter thick and change the adjoining wall as well. I'm going to move this over to get it lined up with where it should be here. And there we go. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this little portion of the wall here as well. And let's just extend this up all the way. Now at this point, there is a gap here that should be a doorway. So to add a doorway in here, I can go over here and choose the type of door. This is a single door, so we'll add that in, drop that into place, change the width of it, and then the door opened this way. We can see that in the scan. So we'll just go and flip that so it's opening the other way. There's a lot of adjustments that can be made to make this perfect, and as you can see through here, we do have a wide variety of different types of doors and windows and labels and other things that we can add into this. So while this may take a little bit of extra effort, it is certainly worth it to have this floor plan for your potential viewers. Next, let's take a look at cleaning up the model. This is the model fix-up section. And as you can see here, there's a lot of extra data that we don't need. All the trees that are hanging out, the street outside of the property, none of that needs to be there, so let's clean that up. Now we can do this one layer at a time, but it is better to do it with the all view. And with the all view, if you go into the model trim, it actually makes it quite easy to manage by simply looking at either the top or the side view to navigate things. So let's start with this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here, and I want to get rid of everything outside of the property line except for this area across the street, because I did deliberately scan here and here. You can see those data points there, and I don't want to get rid of that data. So I'm going to go along the property line. We'll start right about here, and I'm going to use the polygon tool for this. So I'll just click to add a point, add another one, let's say there, and then pan down. And just make sure that I block off this entire area here. Now this was technically inside the garage, but since I couldn't get inside the garage to scan, we don't need any of that. So I'll just go ahead and draw the line out to here, 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 and then let's close that there. As soon as I close it, it automatically extends up. And if we go back to a side view here, then we'll be able to see that we do, of course, need to make this taller. So we'll just bring that up and taller down to the bottom. And you can see as I drag this that the data gets trimmed out. So it's very quick and easy to see exactly what you're trimming. Now granted, in a polygon view, it can be a little bit trickier to see, so you will want to be super careful before hitting that save button, but this looks pretty good here. I'll go ahead and click on save, and that data is now trimmed away. Let's do one more. I'll go to the model trim again, look at the top view, and let's make this one easier and just get rid of everything from this line backwards. So this time we'll just use the standard rectangle tool. Click and click. Once again, it automatically creates that three-dimensional box, which I can now move and scale as needed. So I'll make that a little bit bigger. Go to the side view here. Rotate around. Make sure that I'm getting everything I want. And trim that away. Next up is Model Mark. This simply allows you to add marks anywhere in the model, both in 2D and in 3D. So for example, I could highlight something like this part of the rug here, draw a box around that, and then add a label to it, add some information about that.
I can do the same thing in 3D. So if I cancel that, hit the 3D mark, I can drop this wherever I want in the model. And it just allows me a way to highlight any particular object on here that I might want to. So for example, draw a box around this bar here to call attention to it. It's just another tool in addition to the hotspots for calling attention to any particular part of your model. Next, let's look at the points editor. This allows us to edit each one of the capture points that were created. You can see all of them scattered around on the ground here. And also on the right-hand side, we can see the entire list of them. There's a lot of them, and they're all broken down by the floor that each one was captured on. I'll go up to the top, onto the first floor, and point 1 was where this all began. So let's start there. There's a couple things that you can do in here. First of all, each one of these points is a point that I can jump to. So during normal navigation, I could easily jump to point 44, 45, over here to 16, and whatever that one is off in the distance. But you may not want all of these to be accessible. So for example, let's jump to point 16. And from here, I can see 17, and I can see 36 and 35 and so on. But do I really need point 36? It was very helpful for the 3D data, but I may not need that as a point to jump to. After all, it doesn't really make much of a difference as I go between there and 16. So to clean things up for the viewer, maybe I just want to hide point 36. So to do that, over here I'll just find 36, and there it is. And then I can click the eye next to it, and that will allow us to hide it. Now that that's hidden, it'll no longer be visible while we're exploring the property. So that's one thing that we can do in here. Another one is control which points you can jump to from any other point. So for example, if I go back here to point 1, and then I scroll up to 1 and open this up, you can see all the different points that are accessible from here. And there's a lot of them. These are essentially all the points that were visible by the LiDAR scanner from that position. And as you scan more and more parts of the house, if it's within view, it's going to show up on this list. So here's an example where you might want to change some of that. I'm going to go over here to the entryway. Let's go to this point, which is point number 8. And from point 8, if I look out the window, I can see points 9 and 10. Those make sense to be able to jump to. And from here, there's 7 and 1 and whatever that one was. Those all make sense. But if we look at the list for point 8, by opening this up, we'll see there's quite a few more in here. I can disable individual jump points from here, and this can really enhance the navigation experience. For example, one of the points that I can get to in here is way back here in this room. I can jump to it easily from here by just clicking on the point. So is it point 9? No, that's outside. Is it point 20? There it is, point 20, all the way back here. And it just doesn't make sense to be able to jump all the way to point 20 from the entrance. So I'm going to go ahead and disable that by simply breaking that link. Now, at any point, I can go ahead and turn that back on, but for now, that point is disabled. Let's see if there's any other points I want to get rid of in here. Point 51 is all the way outside. That doesn't make sense either, so let's get rid of that. 50 is on the stairs. That doesn't make sense. 49, that looks like it's also on the stairs. Yep, let's get rid of that one too. Point 10, now we're on the landing. Now this makes sense. We want to be able to jump to here and of course to number 9 from 8. So that's probably all the ones we need to get rid of. This just cleans up the entire flow process and doesn't allow me to accidentally jump too far away while navigating. I can also manually add a connection point in here. So let's say that there's a point that, I don't know, maybe there's somewhere out the window that I want people to be able to jump to. I know there's a navigation point out there, and I want them to be able to click on this window and jump straight out there. I could go up here and simply find the point that I want them to be able to jump to, select it, and then we'll be able to jump there. So you have a lot of control over your connection points, whether you want to add points for someone to jump to manually, or you want to disable points that you don't want them to get to. One of the last things I want to show you before we look at the final model are the add-ons. This is where you can access all those other files that I mentioned in the beginning. If you need CAD files, here you go. You want to download the panoramas so you can build your own 360 models? There they are. You have your instant floor plan, but you also have a manual floor plan that you can download. If you order this, someone else will go in and create the floor plan for you. You can even have it with furniture installed, and you can rush it to get it in just one business day. You can download a video tour of your property, the raw photo files, point cloud files, 3D models, cube maps, and more. Many of these downloads are free, some of them cost credits, and of course the price is always listed at the bottom of the screen. For example, this model will cost 5 credits to download. I actually just ordered one of those models, so let's download it and see if we can open it in DaVinci Resolve. I admittedly know basically nothing about working with 3D inside of Resolve, but I do know that if I import the FBX scene and point to that first object and open it, click OK, and preview that transform, we'll now have a 3D model, the same mesh that we saw earlier, now imported inside of DaVinci Resolve. And now we are ready to preview the property. This is the completed project here. And of course, I'm ready to start navigating it, zooming around wherever I want to go. But if I want to quickly navigate to any particular part of the property, I can jump into the dollhouse view. Here you can see I've done quite a bit of cleanup to this. We can fly around the property, zoom in, see any portion of it up close. But what's really cool about this is you can very easily jump to any part of the property you want to. So here's the patio, click on there, and it takes me to the panorama tour right in that spot. So let's go ahead and take a tour inside of the house. We'll move on in. Here's that detail that I showed earlier of the furnace. Why don't we head downstairs and take a look at that bathroom shot where the mirror showed the camera and see what the software did with that. So that's down here into the bathroom, and sure enough, the camera is gone. This also allows me to explore the floor plan, so we can see what the outside looks like there, jump up to the first floor, which I haven't finished editing yet, but you will be able to view the finished product online, link below, and by the time you look at it, it should look even cleaner. All right, everybody, that wraps this thing up. This turned into a much bigger project than I thought it was going to be, so thanks for watching all the way to the end, assuming you're actually hearing this now. Don't forget to check the links below for the best pricing available now. And, you know, if you decide to get one of these and this isn't something you had ever even thought of before, let me know in the comments. I want to know who's using this and what they're using it for. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you in the next video.